What is up, Cal fans? Welcome back to another episode of the California Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We're going to kick you off with a little bit of the Bear Essentials, baby, and it's just going to be me reading. So, Rob, this is a surprise for you.
I'm just going to sit back and listen.
The Bear Essentials this week comes from people.com. I could hear you already saying, oh boy, without even you saying it. Bill Belichick and girlfriend Jordan Hudson were spotted enjoying a getaway to Nantucket over the weekend during the University of North Carolina's football bye week. The couple was spotted strolling throughout town, holding hands and enjoying a meal, lobster meal, and drinks during the weekend. The pair's romantic escape comes amid news of a new lawsuit filed by a former UNC administrator that alleges Bill Belichick's hiring for the head coach position was illegal as a result of it taking place during a closed Board of Trustees session in December 2024. Did I scare you yet?
A little bit.
All right. Well, my name's Andy. Alongside me is Rob, and that's what we're going to kick us off with, baby. It is not quite UNC time, but I did want to get excited for the matchup against UNC and Coach Bill Belichick, if he's still there.
Well, they're not going to have their defensive backs coach. Armand Hawkins just got suspended today.
For going to Nantucket?
Well, not going for Nantucket, but he gave away some benefits to recruits. And so I think he's on paid leave right now. So,
oh boy.
So they don't have a defensive backs coach for the time being.
When I first read that Bill Belichick went to Nantucket during the bye week, I could not believe it. Could not. And have you ever heard of such a thing? I think it's unprecedented.
What, like that during a bye week that he traveled?
I have a limited scope to this type of stuff, but I'm trying to rack my memory, which is notoriously bad, on if Tedford ever left during a bye week. And it was a bye. We were still there. I mean, maybe they let players do whatever they wanted for 3 days over the weekend. So maybe there's that. That's the only thing I can think of. Other than that, we ran the same, we just ran practice. It was lighter, but I'm stunned by that.
Yeah, so this is the gray area kind of for a bye week, right? Because I know our coaching staff goes out to recruit during the bye week because they can go visit Friday night games during this week that are not local, right? So you can go check in on your recruits. Guys, I've seen players go home for the weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
Because that happens. I've seen them go back to their high schools and stuff to visit games. But him going to Nantucket this early in the bye week, maybe the only reason I can give for that is maybe they changed their practice and recruiting schedule where maybe the early half of the week was where they after the game they told guys, hey, take 3 days, go home if you want to, all that sort, and then they're going to come back to start practice later in the later half of the week. That's probably the only version I see of this, because outside of that, it's very weird for the head coach to not be out there recruiting or whatnot.
Dare I say unprecedented?
Yeah, probably. Either unprecedented or it's just because of his girlfriend and Jordan Hudson, it's so much more visible.
True.
There's more TMZ, paparazzis that are looking out for Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick versus Justin Wilcox at Cal.
Look, Nantucket is a lovely place. It's a lovely place, but no
shame on Nantucket. No shame on Nantucket.
It's a great place, but it's also got to be hard for paparazzi to get over there because it's a small little island. It's not like LA. It just seems difficult.
Yeah, maybe you just want as a photographer, you just want the shot. That's all you want.
Oh boy. All right. Okay. Well, I digress. This was a nice distraction from the Duke game, which is what I was trying to do. Just just run a full distraction.
Like 4 minutes of distraction, and yet the looming presence of having to talk about that game still exists. We're just burying our head in the sand. Nope, not going to
Yeah,
talk about it as long as I
it,
possibly can.
it does. It does. Okay. Well, let's go to the intro. I want to kind of talk about two things. One is our expectations ahead of time. So I'll reset that. And then, Rob, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about what was an amazing game day experience for you and Nam and Nick. Shout out to Nick who hopped on, and just everybody that showed up at Oski's Village to hear that live podcast. That was so cool. And I love listening to that episode. So, but first, like, let's set the stage, and we're going to set it knowing the outcome, which kind of sucks. But nonetheless, we looked at this game and said, one, here we go again in regards to this is an opportunity to move the program forward. We have some good momentum. We're coming in 4-1 against a team that was good last season. So I just think that was there. It was like, would Cal take advantage of the opportunity? And then the second is, we looked at this and said, okay, we're going to skip the BC game as being the game where we're going to know what we have, and we're going to focus on the Duke game and say, okay, this is the one that we can really understand what this team is. And boy, did we, in a way that I think even myself was pretty surprised by. But before all that, knowing that we sort of had all of that coming in, I would love to hear about your experience being on stage. What was that like? You let it go Bears chant, then you try to roll on you Bears chant. Wasn't as successful.
It was definitely one of those things that I had in the back of my mind of like, as soon as I get on stage, and if I can get a lay of the land a little bit and see how many people were there, like that's what I would kind of base it off of if it was doable. And there was enough people at Oski's Village where I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can do this. I think I could do this. I mean, I went up and did a mic check and stuff earlier, so I kind of felt like and got a feel for how loud the audio was and so on. I was like, okay, I think I can do the Go Bears. And I've always wanted to do it, and that's kind of what I said. And
That's awesome.
it was great. I got
Awesome.
the Go Bears back, and even the people that weren't like at the front row, like in the back with the food trucks, or just even walking through Oski's Village, kind of all did it. So you kind of got a real nice little booming sound, and it being at Memorial, where literally a year ago we had College Game Day. So a lot of that was really, really cool to kind of experience. But yeah, the day was great. We got the opportunity to do that a couple weeks ago, and we got that all set up, and I didn't know what to expect. Nam didn't know what to expect. And, I texted you, I think yesterday or Monday or Tuesday, we were like talking, and I was like, I'm still so tired from that day. It was such a long day. But yeah, I mean, first I just want to thank everyone that came out, supported us and was there listening. And, some of our friends even brought like game day type signs to the thing. It was holding it up, and, I mentioned it to Ron, and Ron kind of pointed out some of the signs that he liked, and I think he thoroughly enjoyed it with our fans and our listenership. And it was absolutely amazing. One thing I will say though is they had the stage facing the sunset, so like my face was getting blasted by the sun the entire time. Like if we don't have any video on it, but if you were there, like I turned my head and was just facing Ron and Nam the entire time because I could not look into the crowd because that would be me staring straight into the sun as it was setting that evening. So other than that, I'm glad I decided to put on some sunscreen before I went on stage. But yeah, outside of that, it was absolutely a stellar experience. Hopefully they ask us back, which allows you, Andy, to be on the stage there with us. They, had a nice couch set up for us with these nice podcast mics. They had a sound team there that was, adjusting our sound and gain levels and all that, like as we were talking. So super cool to have a professional, team behind the scenes working it for us. But hopefully they do ask us again to come back. I don't think it'll happen for UNC because, of course, there's the Russell concert that's happening at 5 p.m. On that exact same stage. And then So and then the following home game after that is Virginia. So maybe they ask us back for Virginia. That would be a super cool experience. I would love for you to get that experience, being on that stage as well. But uh, once again, absolutely amazing time being on that stage, and just super thankful that we've grown to the capacity that we are and the level that we are, that allows us to experience those types of things. But once again, that doesn't happen without the people that are listening to this pod right now.
Yes. Yeah, totally agree. And shout out to the fans and to you and Nam, and you guys did such a good job. So whether it happens again or not, it's all good. You guys crushed it, and it was great to listen to, and just really captured a fun energy before the game. And I love that you pulled up Nick from the audience, and um yeah, it was fantastic. So shout out to everybody involved and in making it happen, but also to everybody who showed up. It was honestly phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, having some of my photographer buddies come by to take pictures too, just to document it. Like I sent you a couple of those pictures. Like
I know, I was shocked.
it's
I was like, who took this?
shout out to my buddy Don and Andrew. Also Matt Ha was there as well. So we had 3 guys taking pictures. It's funny because like the official Cal football account, and Cal Athletics account, like put up pictures from that too. And it's like in one of the pictures you see Ron and then half of my face like behind him. And then the other one is just like a full, like you only see Nam's back because he's like standing up to like shake Ron's hand. So, the two of us is just, which is perfectly fine.
Wait,
Ron,
really? Oh, that's
Ron is,
absolutely
the main thing,
hilarious.
and Ron's like in focus. And it's like one of Nam's back and one of half of my face. So I'm okay with that, honestly. It was, but just, the pictures, just like a stage setup for us at Memorial Glade. Like it's still really, really like is surreal.
That's amazing. I think you describing the sunset I was able to actually understand, okay, is the stage the same stage as the game day stage?
No. So it's on the opposite side.
Okay.
So it's like my back was basically to Evans. Like
Okay.
if you know the Glade, map layout.
Yep.
So that's why the sun was straight in my face, because you're facing the west, right?
Yeah.
And you're facing as the sun is setting for a 7:30 game. So yeah, not ideal in that regard. And I should have brought sunglasses like Nam did. Nam brought his sunglasses. That was a smart move. But yeah, outside of that, it was super crazy. And then we have our little tailgate, that tent right there too. So a lot of our buddies were just there hanging out, eating, drinking, as they watched and slightly heckled early on. and then of course had the game day signs. There's the one I really liked was like there's the one of Ron Rivera, and and it's it says like Riverboat Ron is calling, pick up the phone. So having that Ron there was super cool.
I love that. Well, I'll be I RSVP'd yes for the tailgate against UNC.
So yeah, you will be there. We will be there as we listen to a Russell concert. Just unreal.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. Very cool. Man, yeah, I'm really excited to see what Oski's Village is all about, see the scene, get to take it all in. And I feel like that's been a big piece of what Ron's been trying to create, right? Is a reason to come out, like get capacity up beyond 45, get to the 50s, get to the 60s. Just read an article, I think it was in the San Francisco Standard, that new publication that Kawakami's doing with
Yeah.
John Shea and a few other folks. And it was all about like Ron's vision for the program. And that one specifically was actually mentioning the Duke game and sort of not capitalizing on the opportunity again. But, found it. He's doing such a good job. I think he's on 95.7 again this week. Like man, the tour to get Cal relevant and get eyeballs and the Bay Area attention, especially in a market right now that has nothing going on, right? There's no Giants in the playoffs. We not quite like we have Sharks hockey starting. We have Warriors preseason, and you have Niners on Sunday. But like your Saturday spot's pretty much wide open right now.
Friday and Saturday, especially with Friday night for UNC. So you kind of got you got both. You got 2 days that you can fill in, and so and with the Black Bears too, that was pretty cool. The Black Bears at the stadium was super cool.
Yeah, so tell me about that.
Well, like they so what they actually did was you know where the tarps are, right? Like where that that patio that you can book,
The beer garden?
the beer
Yeah.
garden-ish, yeah, type thing. And then at the bottom, right basically at the very bottom of that section, they actually undid the tarp for like, I think about 5 rows on each side of the little south exit. And so that's where they were. And some of them, like, they had the full regalia going. Like, they had the one guy was full on in the ape costume. Another guy had like the whole, shoulder pads with the spikes, the helmet, like the whole 9 yards. And it was cool because I was sitting in that end zone for most of the game, like taking pictures when we were attacking that end zone, and you could tell that they were already fans of ours to a certain degree because that's kind of right where they put the away fans, right? Like in that sliver in that corner, and they were getting into it with some of the Duke fans, which
Wow.
is we never want to you never want it to escalate to the point of like violence or anything, but both they were chirping at the Duke fans. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm all for this. Like, I hope it doesn't escalate to the point where of like a fight. But I do like the chirpiness of it, that we have people that are like, not having it with the away fans. But I also say the Duke fans also pretty reserved. A lot of them left before the game ended, and they were like up. You don't get to see your football team play that often if you live out here because they're coming all the way from the East Coast. But it was just it felt it. I was laughing a little bit just because the
It's
Duke fans.
late. It's late.
It
It's
is late,
late.
but it's like you've seen so many other like fan bases, especially when we were here with the Pac-10 and the Pac-12. Like they're staying till the end, even though they're like smacking Cal in the face.
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota was here too. They stayed till the end, but the Duke fans were like leaving early, and you could kind of tell that university doesn't really have a football culture per se, because they only really had one chant going, and it was the "Let's go Duke, let's go Duke," and they were mostly sitting the whole time, not really standing and cheering. But I mean, kudos to them. They still kind of sold out that section, and they were there in full force. And I bet it was awesome to see a blowout win starting in the second quarter. But yeah, it was surprising for me to see them leave early. So.
Yeah, well, okay, let's take a break, pause right here, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into the Duke game.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
All right, welcome back. It's time, Rob. It's time to talk about the Duke game.
Do we have to?
No, I mean, we don't have to. We definitely do not. I don't know what I'm gonna say beyond what's already been said. What was your takeaway from the game? Like, what were your 3 big takeaways?
I think as you were alluding to earlier, this game kind of was going to be the big barometer test for us of figuring out what this team is. And, just because it is game 6 of the season, like right at the halfway mark, we have to know what our team is at this point. And I think we're an average team. That's kind of it. There are times where we're going to play below average, and there are times we're going to play above average. But all in all, we are a very average college football team. And I'm okay knowing that because of how the offseason went and the timing of which certain events happened throughout the offseason, and the fact that we're starting a true freshman quarterback. We're going to have to live with those growing pains. And that's kind of what we've had to endure the last couple of weeks, is because Jaren's kind of hit that freshman wall, and the experience isn't necessarily there. So we're gonna have to live with those decisions and some of the errors that he makes, and that's part of having a true freshman quarterback. So, that's kind of where we are, and I mean, I don't think we're gonna have such bad luck like last year, where a lot of these toss-up games aren't gonna go our way, which is kind of what's happening this year, right? Is that these toss-up games that we're in have gone full tilt to us, and they've resulted in wins for us. But I think overall we just have to acknowledge where we are as a team, and even though we're an average team, I still think we can get to 8 wins, just because of who we're playing the rest of the way. But that doesn't detract from it not being 50. I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of games where we're going to be overtly favored in. Maybe the big game, but even then it's a rivalry game, so that's gonna pull down the spread. But I just don't see us being a team that's going to have huge favorites or even really huge underdog numbers the rest of the way. I just think we're just going to be very middling. That's one of my big first points. But do you have anything to say to that?
So many things. I mean, not to be all doom and gloom, but Stanford just pulled down a $50 million gift to the football program.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be down forever.
Yeah.
And the thing that was holding Stanford back, I feel was their resistance to the NIL era. Now they're leaning fully in, and they have a donor base that's massive. So that money is going to talk. And I think the one thing, Rob, is we can forgive this. There's kind of 2 thoughts I have. One is we can forgive this because of everything that happened, but I don't think we should. Because it's not like we don't have the resources to be able to adapt when those things happen. And I think that's the biggest thing, is we're no longer the woe is me, non-well-resourced team. These results are happening with a well-resourced and better positioned program. And I think that is really hard to defend. The second piece is I actually think some fans out there are genuinely struggling on if they want us to get to 8 wins. And I don't necessarily have that struggle, but I can also understand why they're conflicted about it. Because does 8 wins potentially continue the trend instead of what would probably, it's basically short-term happiness in the form of an 8-4 an 8-4 record in one of the easiest schedules to ever face this program. But is that really pushing the needle and setting us up for the 9-win season that I know Ron is locked in on us getting to? And I think the answer is overwhelmingly, for me, no. It's not. It's I think we need to make broader changes in order to crack open a higher ceiling.
No, I mean, I think your takes are both right. I'm not saying that, okay, and I'm going to answer the 2 things. One is, I don't think that we should be forgiving and forgetting where we are as a program and the finances that we have available. But, there is nuance to it, right? The moment Jaden left, it was going to be tough to bring in any running back through the portal at that particular point in time, because it was the spring portal, right? So most of the starter type guys have already moved, and the game breaker type of guys have already moved in the winter portal. talents of Jalen's caliber usually don't move in the spring. So to replace him was always going to be a tall task, regardless of how much money we have in the NIL and our ability to provide somewhat market standard levels of that type of talent. So that was my thing. It's just there's a little bit of nuance involved there with certain players and the timings of which they move. It's just the market doesn't allow you to replace that type of talent if they decide to leave in those moments. So that's the thing about that. Second thing, go ahead.
Well, real quick, just on that, the big news that happened, I think last weekend, was that they finalized a new winter portal timeline. Was it the start of the quarterfinals of the CFP?
I believe so, yeah.
Which is still awkward.
Yeah.
But I get it. There's a real school calendar you have to take into account for.
Yep. I mean, not only that, but there was that news that dropped this week about them looking into, or Nicole Auerbach was reporting it. I can't remember if it was done or if this was the recommendation, which they're going to plan to do, which is that old portal window of like if your coach gets fired or moves on, you get like 30 days the moment he is fired or relieved of his duties or moves on. That's no longer the case. It's going to be a 15-day window after the new head coach comes in. So that's when the 30-day window opens.
That makes more sense.
So the guys have to, basically, it helps teams and programs not having to scramble, and it also allows the new coach that comes in to talk to the guys and see their team before, and the guys like before having to straight rebuild right away.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. So I think it'll help both. It'll help programs not have to make a team from scratch last minute. Also, it gives players, I think it protects the players a little bit too, where you're not jumping into the portal immediately and, not having a place to go. But I think you stay with this team, you get a chance to meet the new coach, and then make your decision based off of that meeting.
Okay. Okay.
So it kind of helps both. It protects the program and it protects the players. But I mean, that's not going to stop the tampering from happening. Like that's a whole different issue.
No. And that's what Ron said a little bit on the podcast too. It's like, we got to level the playing field. I thought that was a really good point, and just like continuing to hammer that there's 70% of the league is participating in a salary cap essentially, and 30% is not.
Yeah. And then the one thing I wanted to say on what you were talking about earlier in fans and their perspective on the program, I think the one thing I would say is that as fans, we can't really dictate the decision makers. I mean, there's moments we can, and there's moments we can push a certain narrative, but ultimately the decision makers are going to make the decisions, right? The donors who are in those discussions mainly because of how much they donate, and then also the people in power, namely Ron Rivera. So if we truly believe Ron is the man for the job, and that was the whole thing about that push of give Ron the keys and all of that, if you wholeheartedly believe in that, then our job as fans is not to worry about when the decision is made. It's that he makes the right decision. So if let's say we do get to 8 wins, then we have to trust that Ron is going to make a decision based on the 8 wins, not just purely because we got to 8 wins, but how we got to those 8 wins, and if that's replicatable, right, or replicable on a year-to-year basis, and if the 8 wins is going to be a place that we can jump off of to get to 9 wins or 10 wins. And if he makes that call, regardless of which way he makes the call, right, whether it's to extend Wilcox or whether it's to move on from Wilcox and to start fresh, we have to fully just trust that he's going to make that right decision. If your entire thing and your fandom and you are part of that whole movement, that you trust Ron with and his decision-making processes in that regard. So, like, if that's the case and you're all in on with Ron making the decision, then as fans, the only thing we can do is root for wins. I'm never going to root for losses.
Yeah.
Like, so, just to prove a point, like, I'm always going to want our team to win. I'm never going to want our team to lose. And so that actually with Ron, and if you truly believe that Ron is the guy for the job and he's making the right decisions, which I am fully in on, then yeah, I'm just going to keep rooting for wins, because he'll make the judgment call on if the win is like a worthy win to add to the resume, or if it was like a fluky win that should not have any bearing on the decision-making process and the job evaluation at the end of the season. So that's my take, is if you're a fan that's struggling with that, trust Ron. And if you do trust him, then all you got to do is take it game by game and just root for the team to win.
I think that's a really good point. And that's the difference between this season and last year, to be honest. And I think I can't blame anybody that I think a lot of fans in sports, I mean, I've seen that in Giants communities. I've seen that in, a variety of communities. You hear it a little bit with like the people that are now rooting against Brock Purdy, right? There's like, oh, I hope we lose with Brock so that we realize that he's overpaid or something. I mean, that's the narrative, which is weird, but it's so binary. And I think that your point is a really good one, which is there's a huge difference between this year and last year. And you have to trust that the people involved, especially the people that are most strategic and invested donors, were adamant, had direct line of communication with the chancellor and direct decision-making over football, and got that, are the ones that are going to make the best decision for the football program going forward.
Yeah, and the thing with the pros, too, it's like, people are like, then why would you root? Like, well, because the pros, you have a payout, which is a high draft pick. Like, if you lose, like, that's why you're going to sometimes root for your team to lose and tank, is because you want the high draft pick to force you into, like, that builds you hope into that next season, right? But I think in collegiate sports and a lot of other sports in the world, like even, European soccer, right? It's like, you can't lose. Because like in European soccer, if you lose, you have the potential to be relegated. And that hamstrings your team from a financial standpoint. So like you want your team to win every game. And that's kind of like the same place in college football. We don't have relegation, but the more you lose, you're going to lose out on finances. You're going to lose out on recruits. And that's kind of what's got us to this point of, even just during realignment, is because we haven't won enough to put ourselves into relevancy. So like if we went through that just 2 years ago, like why would you be rooting for us to lose? Because we need as many wins on and off the field as we possibly can to prep ourselves and have a foundation ready for that next round of realignment that probably occurs in the next 5 years.
Yeah. That was a very interesting piece of that article that I mentioned before that was in the San Francisco Standard, was how focused both Rich Lyons and Ron Rivera are on not the ACC expiration. They actually call out specifically the Big Ten media rights expiration.
Yep.
As sort of the key, and that's our window. That's our window. And if you're making decisions, again, based on that window and understanding, okay, I think that was like 2028, 2029.
Yeah, I think that's where the option is. Yeah.
We got to be competitive. We got to be memorable, and we have to be relevant. That's it. You just can't be irrelevant. And it does seem like every time, I'll go full circle here, that we have the opportunity to become more relevant, we cannot capitalize on that moment. Whether it was like the collapse against Miami, and like this game is different. This game actually went pretty much how I called it, and I was stunned by that. And I do say that, like, seriously, I sent a text after we were up 21-7 and just like sent like a couple of bear emojis because I was excited and was like, oh, I'm wrong. And then all of a sudden I watched and I was like, oh, damn it. Shouldn't have sent that. But I just think that we're at this, if we go all the way back to our takeaways, there's a couple of interesting thoughts that I either had myself or that I have read from some others. I think one of the interesting ones was the pillow fight, rock fight article that came out on Right for California, right? Berkelium, is that right?
Berkelium
Berkelium.
97.
Yeah. So he does an amazing job. And what was so interesting about this game, and I don't think I would have taken that away from having just watched it casually, was that our running back performance and our quarterback performance were basically within the range of the median, if not a little bit better. However, the O-line from a pass protection standpoint and from a run protection, like I always find it weird when it's like protection, but from a run, creation,
Run blocking.
run blocking standpoint, thank you, was maybe one of the worst we've ever had in the Wilcox era against a team that isn't necessarily known. I wasn't expecting Duke to be able to shut us down like that. And so all this to say, the comments that I read on the blog sometimes are all about how could we not recruit players at the O-line and D-line. I think there was one specifically looking at the number of NFL players from the O-line and D-line that specifically came from Cal and were drafted in the Tedford era, and then comparing them to the Dykes Wilcox era. And it was like 0. We've obviously had successful O-linemen like Jake Curran, and I'm trying to think of
Pat McCarry,
and I think Schwenke was Tedford.
Yeah, Schwenke was Tedford.
But like there have been 0, and then in the era before, I think it was like maybe 10 or 12. But it is one of those things where if you look at that in a vacuum, you're like, oh my gosh, how did we get so bad at this? But the secret to that sauce is not us getting bad at it. It's the rest of college football becoming supremely aware of how valuable O linemen are and D linemen are. And so the question that I'm finally getting to, Rob, is not so much for me about why is our O-line still so bad in year 9. It's actually like, what does Kenny Dillingham do at ASU with the O-line, knowing that there's an advantage that others have out there, right? That the 5-star is probably going to go to Bama, Texas, Georgia, what have you. So how do these other programs that find this higher level of success than Cal do so where we seemingly cannot find consistently? Even if you go back to Greatwood, it's not even like our O-line was a strength. I legitimately don't think we've had a strength next to the O-line in the entire Wilcox tenure. And that is fascinating given that he came from Wisconsin.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Like, there's once again with much of college football, and was I talking to Nam or you about this? But like sometimes I just wish like I was just an average like couch fan, because I think at this point, with how much we're connected with the program, how much we're more into the weeds of college football, it's like I can't just like sit there and be like, yeah, we like that needs to change, like that needs to be better, because we understand there's so much more nuance involved with every single aspect of this damn sport, and you have to look at all of that, right? And a couple of things stand out to me with this question and this topic that you're posing. First off, in regards to defensive ends and, mostly offensive line, I'm assuming you're looking more at like tackles, right? Because those are the more important positions. I think guys that are plus or even plus guys at those positions are a dime a dozen, or not a dime a dozen. Like, they're very hard to come by. They're extremely hard to come by. Tackle size, defensive end size that are like disruptors, or, guys that you could put on islands. like the Trent Williams or the Jason Peters of the world, they don't come in often. And if they do, those guys, as you said, are going to the Bamas and so on. And then on top of that, like we're probably not even in the second tier of getting those recruits in, like that are maybe on the cusp, right? The 3.5-star guys or the 4-star guys at those positions, because of just the trend of where our program is right now. Like we're not going to be able to pull those guys in. So we're having to bank on, which I think we have to give credit where it's due. Like Wilcox understands that, and if he wants to get to that point of being able to get those guys in, like we're going to have played to a level that allows us the interest in those guys, and where do we get to that point? It's probably guys that were at Power 5 schools that didn't get playing time. Maybe I hate this term, but it's the term that people use, is the quote unquote damaged goods. And then also G5 guys that are looking to make that jump up into Power 5 and hoping that we hit on some of those.
Is that really it though? Because I've heard you say this before. Is that, do you think that's like what Arizona State has to do?
Well, no. I'm saying that's another aspect of it. That's a part of it. And then I think the third thing that has to do with this is the recruiting standards at our university do not allow us to go after everyone. And that's a clear part. So if you're like looking at like a database, right? And you're like using the filters, we have a lot more filters we need to put on versus an Arizona State.
Yeah, I do agree with that. It's a small pool getting smaller, right?
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, so how many of those how many of those guys filter out all of those? And then on top of that, can we recruit for some? Like, let's say there's a 5-star kid out there, right? Who has the GPA, who has the size, who has, all of that. Can we really get into the mix for that right now of where we stand? And that's that's the tough part.
I would think yes, with the resources that we have. I don't know. I mean, part of me looks at it and says, is it truly that like it almost in a way cannot be solved? Or it just strikes me as being bizarre, as an outlier. Like the fact that we have never had it as a strength. I don't get it. I think everything you said contextually makes a lot of sense, but I also don't want to excuse it as, do I think that if Stanford had not openly said we're not going to adapt into this NIL era, that they wouldn't have been able to continue their reputation as sort of like O-line U? I think like they probably would.
I mean, but even then, they struggled towards the end of David Shaw's tenure, right? And that was kind of before NIL too. I think what you said, and then what I said, and then also what you said, it's all coming together right now, which is the trend of college football turning into, you have to recruit very good offensive linemen and very good defensive linemen in order to maintain some sort of competitive standard, has grown into like a main part of how you develop a program. And if all of the colleges are doing that and all of the programs are doing that, of course, where we are in the pecking order in the totem pole of college football doesn't allow us to break into those places where we might have had success earlier, pre-NIL. And then also we look at like SMU last year, right? And the reason they did so well in the portal is they brought in offensive linemen and they brought in defensive linemen, and they spent a lot of money on NIL to do so. This was also before this whole salary cap era, right? So, and they were able to build success on that. We tried to replicate that this year, but then what happened? The salary cap issue started this year. So now everyone's kind of adjusting to that. So we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of years and if that balances the playing field up until that point. But I guess what I'm saying is the last few years under NIL, yes, we had the money, but we also didn't have enough money to pay for those types of top tier guys, along with like spreading the wealth out to be able to recruit in other places as well, because of where we are as a program and the name value that our program has currently in the college football world.
Okay. I like your defense. I mean, I like your points there. I want to bring up one more before we can sort of transition to what's ahead and put this game behind us. So the other thought that I had is, which I think is different than what most people have been saying, I'm not that concerned. I actually think broadly most people probably are not that concerned with Jaren. I think that like what this game script sometimes it like did have a San Diego State kind of flow to it a little bit, where we had a lot of we're having that level of success and then just some error, like, you know, losing turnover battle hurt. But the bigger area that I'm most kind of upset with is the defense, and that's what I started to see crack a little bit. I think San Diego State and then the Boston College game, and then that's sort of what I was like anticipating given like Duke's success against Syracuse before facing us. And that's really what ended up happening, was the defense sort of disappeared. And I think it brings a bigger question, which is the defense hasn't necessarily looked that good since like 2019. Like it's been a long time since we've had that, like the defense of 2017, the defense of 2018, where it was like, we are going to come in and we are going to not allow you to play your game plan. And the secondaries have been strong, but certainly the defensive front, and the pressure that we're just not getting any pressure. And I think that is like one of the hardest things to understand. And is it like, so again, I'll toss a lofty loaded question your way. Is the only reason why we had a good defense because we had Tim DeRuyter as our defensive coordinator?
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm gonna give a little bit of pushback to this, because I have seen these comments as well about the defense not playing well in against Duke. And, you know, certainly if you're looking at the final score and how the game plan went, it probably is, you know, you're not wrong in that regard. But once again, with most of this, there's nuance to this, right? Like, the defense definitely looked bad to end the first half, right? Against Duke. But you also have to look at what happens the moment we come out of halftime. The defense gets 3 straight stops.
Yep.
They weren't 3 and outs. I think 2 of them were 3 and outs, but one of them was like a 5 and out ish. But the defense got stops. But what happens right after that is the offense either turns the ball over or they go 3 and out and give the ball right back to Duke. And then after that 6 possession little stalemate is where Duke starts to score again. And I think that's where our defense got gassed, is just where we were just unable to do that. Also, like, we have to give credit where it is, right? Like, Duke's front seven is a very good front seven. I said that before the season started too. Like, I was like, do not sleep on this Duke defense. They are a really good defense. And of course, number 7 on their team, I can't remember what his name is, but is top 3 in the country in sacks, right? Like, he is a very, very good pass rusher. Us on the defensive end, and this goes back to what we were just talking about with recruiting and all that, is like Ryan McCullough going down has been detrimental to us because we just don't have a plus pass rusher on the defensive line. And that's a question that Nam and I were talking about this week too. Like, you know, if we're looking, let's say Wilcox does stay, like, what changes do we think might occur? I think Andrew Browning and the defensive line, you know, maybe you look to refresh that Browning's been here a while, and it started off great, but it's kind of flatlined a little bit. Maybe he looks for a fresh start. Maybe Wilcox looks for a fresh start on that in that position group. So that's like one position group I would look at if Wilcox were to be extended and that tenure were to stay. But that position group is definitely something that we've struggled to, and much like the offensive tackles, like plus defensive rushers are hard to come by. Ryan McCullough was one of them, but like I know some people were asking like why not put Cade out there, but it's like, well, Cade's undersized. You can't have an undersized edge who can't set the edge properly nor play the passing lanes out into the flat. Either with his height or with long arms. And Cade is not, Xavier Carlton in size by any means. So It's tough to make that transition from an inside linebacker to an outside. So, and Cade's also best served as a guy who runs downhill and hits the A-gaps. So, like, that's the tougher part. And not having those types of bodies and the depth that we would have liked to have is really tough. So yeah, that's kind of the thing I would say is that the defense I think has played well, and Wet Beefs in mass with Nam has also kind of said like we're gonna probably be pretty vanilla from a defensive side this year because of everyone playing together for the first time really, and it's not an experienced defense. And they're just kind of hoping that you kind of win the one-on-one battles, which has happened at times, but we don't have that game-breaking defensive end to do it. And you can only ask your safety to cover these wide receivers for so long. And also credit to Duke's wide receivers, man. Like they were very good in getting separation from our guys, even though for a lot of the game you saw Paco and Zeke like playing really well. But you also have a true freshman, sitting back there at safety. So he's going to make some mistakes every once in a while as well. And so, yeah, it's just an amalgam of all of those things that led to it. But, I think that the saying that the defense as a whole played badly, this game, I don't think really tells the whole story just because of how they did adjust. And, we got to give credit to that, too. They did make great adjustments coming out of halftime to be able to make those stops. I think one thing was early, too, in the first half when they started to score was I don't think the defense expected them to go tempo that early. And that's what kind of screwed us. And then when they went tempo, like that's when they started to score. And then we made the adjustments. And also they decided not to go tempo on us to start the second half, and that's where we got the ball back. I don't know what Manny Diaz was thinking because all they needed to do was constantly go tempo, and they could have scored a lot more in this game. But the game flow went back to us, but we just weren't able to capitalize on the offensive end when we got the ball back from our defense.
Dare I say, Manny Diaz might have turtled a little bit, but
he did. He definitely did.
Not the wrong thing to do necessarily. 10-point lead on the road.
Yeah, nope.
Because I think it was just that like of the avoidance of a turnover to flip the game script, and one mistake is all you need in a 10-point game. Yeah. Okay, well, I like this. It's like yin and yang a little bit today, Rob. I'm throwing the heaters your way, the hot takes, and you're pouring a little cold water on them, which is good. I'm ready to put this game behind us and move forward into the bye week of the bye week bliss, dare I say.
Are we going to win the bye week? Is that a thing we can do?
I don't think so. We only we don't tend to win out of a bye week, so I'm not going to expect us to win the bye week. I'm going to hope, the thing that hasn't been going in our favor is generally the schedule, but UNC keeps going in our favor to go full circle on our Bare Essentials beginning.
Unless they fire Bill. If they fire Bill,
they're not firing Bill.
I know, but what I'm saying is, if they do, let's say something changes, and if they fire Bill before the Cal game,
we're definitely losing. We've seen that movie.
Dude, I said this earlier this week to a bunch of folks. I was like, the best thing Cal fans can do over the next 10 days ish is to pray to God, all the football gods, that UNC does not fire Bill Belichick before our game.
Rob, I hate to tell you, but like my gut is calling this one a loss. If Belichick's still head coach.
Oh, we'll see. I haven't dived into the tape yet, but they're not great.
They're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. You know what? That's fair. I think I was listening to a radio segment and someone was talking about Belichick, or maybe it was me reading this article by Yahoo Sports. It was like Dan Wolken, and he was talking about, who was it? They were saying that like Belichick, by the end of his tenure at the Patriots, was doing like the most insane things. Oh yeah, it was fantasy football. And they're like making the case for a lot of the Patriot players that have been bad. And they're like, you don't understand. He took Matt Patricia, who had never coached offense in his
and he turned
entire
him
life,
offensive coordinator.
and turned him into offensive coordinator. Like there were some decisions that were made that made absolutely zero sense. It's wild, from the greatest coach of all time.
There was
Maybe at this point we say one of, because he might need an asterisk.
He's definitely going to have an asterisk because everything after and before Tom Brady is average or sub-average.
Yeah.
So
goodness.
But yeah, there was also like on TikTok, I think, or on Instagram, you know how they do like those like interviews with like people like on the street. They did one at UNC and they were talking to this UNC student, this girl, and she was talking about, yeah, I was at the TCU game and that was like one of the most, like, I can't remember what word she used. Disappointing, maybe. And her thing was like, yeah, I was at that game. It was one of the most disappointing like experiences of my life, and I've failed midterm before.
Oh, I love that so much.
It's so good.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Failing the midterm is a low low.
It's a low low. It's a low low.
I remember that.
Yeah, not a great feeling. But I just saw that and I was like, that's the essential UNC experience right now.
So wild.
Constant disappointment.
Okay, let's look ahead real quick because there are a couple of things I want to follow up with you on. Specifically, I want like ACC standings, bowl implications, and season trajectory. I am going to combine into one.
Okay.
And my major question is just like, to me, 9 wins seems gone. Like the door is very closed, but it wasn't my prediction to make, so it's not my prediction to update.
I mean, mathematically it's still there, but yeah, I would probably put the ceiling on this team at 8 wins. And that's ceiling, right?
That's ceiling. So that's ceiling. That's your bet. Everything goes right.
Everything goes right. I mean, imagine replicating 4-2 in the back half of the season. I think it's doable. Like if you start with the UNC game, you win that, you beat, and then Virginia Tech also fired their head coach. Thankfully, they got their win, so you don't have to worry about that bad juju. So let's say you beat Virginia Tech, so that's 2, and then you win big game, that's 3, and then one of Louisville, Virginia, SMU for 4. You could convince me of that's a possibility of it. Turn one of those 3 into a 50-50 game and something goes our way where we go 4-2 again in the back half of the season. So that's why I'm saying ceiling of another 4-2 in the back half to get to 8-4 it's doable for sure. But yeah, that's probably the ceiling is where I stand at 8-4. I think 6-6 is probably the floor. I still think you get 2 wins out of the last 6 games. If you like lose, I think like the next 4 games straight, like yeah, you're probably looking at a coaching change mid-season.
If you lose against UNC, there might be a riot.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think this is a game you can't lose. I texted Trace and Nam before the Duke game, and I was like, honestly, just because I know Duke's a solid team, I would be okay if you come out of this North Carolina schedule, like Duke and North Carolina, if you come out of it 1-1. I'd be ecstatic if you came out of it 2-0, but you absolutely cannot come out of this 0-2. So this is the one you got to win.
Where do you think? What type of bowl game are you looking at if you're 6-6, 7-5? Are we still on the Pac-12 bowl schedule?
Yeah. Well, this is the last year we're on the Pac-12 bowl schedule. So you're probably looking at something like a lower tier at large bid. Someone had us pegged for an Independence Bowl again, which I highly doubt. I mean, LA Bowl, of course, that's a possibility again. Maybe if we're lucky, Vegas. If you get to 7 and there's a couple other Pac-12 teams that don't get there. So Vegas would be cool. I mean, the day sucks. It's a 31st of December. It's a New Year's Eve game, and then also it plays the Big Ten. So there's a non-zero chance you play someone like an Indiana or a Michigan.
That's fun.
That would be hilarious. Imagine
Nando
against his former team in Vegas would absolutely be hilarious. Absolutely be hilarious. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand. 8-4 ceiling, 6-6 floor, and you probably need, you need a win this week or next week.
All right, last bit. We saw some news with, I think it was one of our receivers transferring, unless I just got that totally wrong.
Well, he hasn't said he's transferring yet, but yeah,
he's in the portal.
He's probably entering the portal after season's over.
So, any other key injuries that we saw in this game, or players that are no longer with the program?
Not that I know of. I think most of the injuries you get in that Thursday injury report that the ACC puts out now. I will say the one thing I will look out for in the next couple of weeks is like Mark Hamper, wide receiver, was on the injury list 2 weeks ago. He wasn't on the injury list this week or for the Duke game, but he did not play a lot of snaps in that Duke game. So we'll see how his injury is progressing. His recovery is progressing for the UNC game on Friday. But outside of that, I think what you see is probably what you're going to get. There was a couple news, though, like inside linebacker Bum Jock, the transfer from Colorado State, isn't on the Cal roster anymore. So that's probably one of the guys that's probably hitting the portal soonish. And then that was the only one I saw. But that, and of course, the wide receiver you were referring to is Isaac Torres, who should be in the portal soonish.
All right. Well, as you said, Rob, we got to win the bye week.
Can't lose the bye week. Can't lose the bye week.
I don't know. If there's a way. All right, I won't even say it.
The only way you lose a bye week is like someone gets like detrimentally hurt during this weekend.
Oh my, why would you even say it? Why would you even say it?
That's not going to happen because they're not even practicing.
Are they going to Nantucket?
How long is a flight from here to Nantucket?
Dude, you fly like 4.5 hours or 5 hours to Boston, and then you take another hour and 15-minute flight from Boston to Nantucket. That's if you do the plane route. You can also fly to Boston, get a rental car, and then drive to a ferry, and then take the ferry from I don't know where,
the port to Nantucket.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, in essence, that's like Catalina Island here. That's kind of the same type of trip you're making.
But it's just so much funnier that it's Nantucket.
It's Nantucket, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe some Cal fans are making that Nantucket trip during the bye week. I don't know if any of our players are actually from New England, so you might not see any of our guys out there. But I think it's a well-deserved day off for the boys.
Well-deserved break. All right, take us home.
Well, that wraps it up for us on the Golden Bearcast here today. You can find all the written stuff over at Referee California. If you want to get at us, you can find us on Twitter at Golden Bearcast. You can email us goldenbearcast@gmail.com. And if you're listening to us, you already know where to find us. We're on all podcast platforms available. Also on YouTube, if that's how you listen to podcasts, which is a new medium that I guess people have been listening to us, Andy, because we've gotten quite a few more subscribers on our YouTube channel and also more views and listens on our YouTube page too. So if that's the way you consume our podcast, continue to do so. We love your support. Also, as just a new reminder, if you can, give us a like, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, that would definitely help our algorithm. We love actually seeing people comment on the pod and so on. So if you can do that, that would help us out. And that's it for us this week. We will be back with Golden Tweets and also a podcast next week about if we won the buy or not. And maybe some new announcements on whether you'll see us on the Glade for the Virginia game. I think that's it, Andy. Anything else to add?
No, sir. Go Bears.
Yep. And as always, go Bears.